Hey guys, and welcome to IT 2060 or IT 6060, depending upon what section of the class you're taking. This is a dual level class for undergraduates and graduates alike. This is an introductory database course, meaning this course is being offered for folks that have no experience with database or have very limited experience with database. Maybe you've worked with some Excel or Access, or maybe you've played with MySQL. This is really the course for you. I know based upon some of the discussion board responses, it seems like some of you do have experience in database, which is great. Unfortunately, I think there are a few of you who I know have fairly extensive database histories. That to be said, I can't promise how much you'll get out of the class, but hopefully you take something away. So the first video I'm uploading this week is going to be about setting up our environment. And setting up our environment should be pretty straightforward. There's really going to be two pieces of software you're going to have to download. And those pieces of software are going to be SQL Server Express 2016 and SQL Server Management Studio 17.4. Now, excuse me, the version of Management Studio doesn't necessarily matter that much, and the version of SQL Server doesn't necessarily matter that much. My ask is that everybody download 2016 and 17.4 because that's what I'm going to be using. That way, if you run into issues, it will be a lot easier for me to assist you, especially since this is an online class, knowing you have the same setup that I do versus having maybe a newer version or an older version that there might be bugs specific to a version. You might see some different behavior. The way your tools are going to be laid out might not match mine if you have a different version of Management Studio. Now, for those of you that don't have any database experience, you might be asking, well, what's the difference between SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio? Well, there's a pretty big difference, but it's pretty straightforward. So every database system that we work with is not one of the, I remember taking this class for the first time, and I remember thinking that, well, number one, I don't remember this question being answered, but number two, I remember that when I took this class and when I first started getting exposure to using databases, I never really understood the difference. And obviously now I do. And so a database is not a standalone server. It's not. Now I know some of you are probably listening to this and thinking, well, of course it's not a standalone server. Some people think it's a standalone server. Some people think that MySQL is an operating system we put on a box and it runs just the database. No, a database is a standalone program that runs on a server. We can have servers that have SQL Server and MySQL and Postgre and things like that, all running simultaneously that we can all connect to. So a database is really just a program. Well, obviously there's storage behind it, but what we connect to is a program. And what we use to connect to that is what's known as a database client. Now, a database client can be in the MySQL world. It can be MySQL Workbench, or if you're doing it programmatically, it can be SQL Alchemy, or something like Django ORM, Object Relational Mapping, things like that. In our case, we're using SQL Server Management Studio, which is a database client that allows us to manage our database configuration, which again is a standalone program that we connect to and maybe make modifications to the configuration of. So if for some reason your database program is offline, then your data will not be available. We don't necessarily even need a GUI-based database client to connect to it. We can connect to it directly from a terminal or directly from code, depending upon your need, and we'll go into those two later on. Later in the semester, I probably will jump us into MySQL and we'll do some very light code hookup, maybe. So that to be said, let's get into the environment setup. We don't need to worry too much about how all of this stuff is going to play together because we'll get into that in the next video. Really all we need now is we need to get our environment set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to download, and I'll upload these links to Blackboard, but the first step is going to be to search for a SQL Server Express 2016 download. If you Google this, it will be the second choice on the Google result list. If you Google SQL Server Express 2016 download, exactly. So what we'll do is we'll download it. I've already downloaded it. And then we're going to do the same thing for SQL Server Management Studio 2016. And that's going to be the first thing on your list. And I Googled 2016, but you want SQL Server Management Studio 17.4. So once those two have downloaded, we're going to want to install them. So we'll go ahead and install SQL Server. Now, I've already done this installation, so I'm not going to walk through the whole installation. I'll walk through part of it and then close out of it. Once you fire this up, it's going to ask you, do you want basic, custom, or download medium? We want the basic. So click basic, agree to terms, select the installation location, and it'll install. Once that's been installed, we're going to repeat the process with SQL Server Management Studio. And obviously I've already installed Management Studio, so it's going to ask me if I want to well, apparently I need to restart. Forgot to restart. Or at least I thought I had installed it. I thought I reinstalled it. Okay, we might be able to walk through the installation together as soon as Windows finishes the updates. For those of you that haven't talked to me yet, I am a very big proponent of Mac. If I had it my way, we wouldn't use Windows at all in this class, but I know most of you are on Windows, and that is fine. Windows has a place in the world. Not my world, but it has a place in the world. So as soon as we get restarted here, obviously, so you guys saw the VMware. I am virtualized. That's my solution or my suggestion to those of you that are running on Macs, is to virtualize your environment. And if you choose to do so, please let me know. I can get you a VM that I have pre-built for the class that has your environment set up and everything. Obviously, it's not going to have any data on it or anything, but it will have, it'll be set up. So that's for the Mac users. All right, so we're restarted. Let's see where we're at here. Oop. Okay. All right, so we're going to walk through the install together. So you'll open up the installer. It's going to prompt you to install. You hit install. Pretty straightforward. So now we just wait for it to do its installation thing. And while it's doing its installation thing, we can go through and configure the database application part. So if you go to your start window and you scroll through all of your programs, you will see SQL Server 2016. And you're going to click SQL Server 2016 Configuration Manager, which is going to look something like this. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. Actually, let's go ahead and scratch that last part. Click on it, or right click on it, more, run as administrator. Just to make sure we're still running, and we've been running for 10 minutes. Cool. All right, so a couple things we want to make sure are happening when we have installed our SQL Server application. The first, we're going to come into this configuration manager, and you're going to click on the first tab here on the left, which is SQL Server Services. And what we want to look for here is we want to look for SQL Server and SQL Server Browser. We want to make sure that both of these are running, otherwise we won't be able to connect to our database with our Management Studio or our database client. Out of the box, SQL Server should be running, and if it's not, you can right-click on it and start it. And the same thing with the SQL Server Browser. Don't worry about the agent. So right-click. So it should be running. If it's not, right-click it, start it to both of them. You, in theory, should be able to do this out of the box. One thing that I ran into, and maybe some of you guys will run into it as well, so I'm going to walk through it real quick, is when you try to start your browser, or maybe it'll happen to your server itself, all of these options will be grayed out. So the solution to that is pretty simple, and what we're going to do is we're going to hit our Start menu, and we're going to search for Services. And we're going to right-click on Services, and we're going to hit Run as Administrator. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to find SQL Server Browser. We're going to right-click on it, we're going to hit Properties, and we're going to change our startup type from, assuming it's grayed out, it will probably be disabled. We're going to change that from disabled to automatic, hit Apply, and then from within this, we'll be able to right-click it and hit Start. And then we'll go back to our SQL Server Configuration Manager, hit the refresh icon, and now you should see both of your SQL Server Services running. That's kind of hard to say, SQL Server Services. So that's all we really should need to do to get our SQL Server running. Now, our Management Studio has been installed, so we'll go ahead and close that. And now we're going to open our All Programs again, and we're going to scroll down. Well, I guess this is just the Start menu now, but now we're going to click SQL Server Tools 2017, and we're going to click SQL Server Management Studio 17. And you should see the version 17.4. And it'll prompt you to connect to a server. And so we're going to want to select Database Engine as our server type. And the server name is going to be the host name of your computer / SQL Express. And if you don't know the host name of your computer, you can open a terminal, which you can do by Windows key R to bring up the run window and type cmd, or you can search for command prompt or cmd.exe, whatever you want, and you can just look for so once you've opened it, then you'll type hostname and hit enter. So that will give you the host name of your computer, and we're just going to copy that and come back here. So we'll plug that in /SQL Express, and then for the authentication type, we're going to want the Windows authentication. You'll see there's a bunch of different kinds. We just want the Windows for right now. And we'll go ahead and hit connect, and we're connected to our database. So you'll see a bunch of different little folders here. The first one we're going to really worry about is databases, and we have system databases and database snapshots. We will go ahead and create a new database. So right-click on databases, and we will create a new database, and we'll call it IT 2060 or IT 6060, depending upon what section of the class you're in. And all of this should be fine We can ignore the options, and we don't really, for right now, we're not going to worry about all this stuff, so we're just going to create a new database. And assuming you can do all of this and create a new database, that is all we need to do. And in fact, we can even create well, I guess not. So yeah, create a new database, IT 6060 or IT 2060. Assuming you can do all of that, your environment should be set up and you should be good to go. If you run into any issues installing, please let me know. Please reach out. Don't procrastinate on this one. Later this week, I'm going to be, probably tomorrow night, I'm going to be uploading a video covering a little bit of the structure of how databases are structured. And then next week, we're going to jump right into SQL, which is structured query language, which is the quote-unquote programming language of databases. So we want to have our environment set up and ready to go for next week. So if you have any questions, please email me directly. Don't use the Blackboard tool, and I'm going to make an announcement about this. For whatever reason, if you try to email me through the Blackboard tool, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't send, and I don't get it. If you need immediate assistance, please add me on Skype using the link I provided. That is by far the easiest way to get a hold of me if you need something right this second. So like I said, reach out if you have any questions, and that's it.